Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Mandatory Live Show as we're going to be breaking down Canelo Alvarez and Jaime Munguia. If you already follow us on social media channels at the Mandatory TKO, thank you. If you don't, please go follow us. Also, if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We're going to be getting to all your comments. This is an interactive show. We're going to be getting into the breakdown of Canelo Alvarez and Jaime Munguia. But before we get into all of that, I just want to say if you've been rocking with the show, thank you so much. We're also available on the audio side. So if you got a couple of minutes, make sure to, leave a rate and review. Bryan is smiling because we are going to be talking about a big fight. But there's a big fight going on right now in rap and beef. And Kendrick just put out a disc and we went through it. And it was, there are some really funny bars. I don't know how Drake comes back from that. But before we kind of get into everything really quickly, because we're hip hop fans, Bryan, your thoughts on this diss track really quick.
I need to listen to it over and over to catch every bar, but as someone who is a Drake non-believer, I don't know how he comes back from this either. That diss was one of the best disses I've heard in a long time. Probably the best diss I've heard in a while. I don't even know when the last one was that made me feel like this. We're going to get to Canelo in a second. Coincidentally, there was a Terrence Crawford bar in the Kendrick Lamar diss, which I thought was great.
One of the best bars.
By the way, boxing fans, there is some pad work out there. Drake pad work, Kendrick Lamar pad work surfaced online. And I will tell you, Kendrick Lamar also would beat him in a boxing match.
I don't know if he's hard. Come on, hitting the pads. The height and reach advantage, different weight classes.
Doesn't matter.
I don't know about
Kendrick
that.
actually looks like he knows how to box. Drake is just hitting pads. He's doing all this bullshit. Kendrick is actually squared up, throwing left hooks, slipping. Like, come on, man. Yeah, I think Kendrick, even though he's 5'6", even though Kendrick's 5'6", fellow short dude, like I'm rolling with Kendrick on that one too.
I just don't think they're in the same weight class. You know what I mean? Like Drake's like 6 foot, but for the rap beef, Kendrick definitely is holding the lead in that one. But we're gonna get into everything Canelo Alvarez and Jaime Munguia. Let's start off with one of the biggest questions going into this, and remember to keep the comments coming, guys, because we are gonna get to all of your comments as well. But Bryan, I think one of the biggest questions is because we've seen Canelo Alvarez fight in his last 2 fights. John Ryder went the distance, and then Jermell Charlo, he went the distance with Mel as well. I thought he was possibly going to get the stoppage against Mel. That didn't happen. I thought he was going to get the stoppage against John Ryder. That didn't happen. Of course, we know that Jaime Munguia stopped John Ryder. So I think one of the biggest questions coming into this fight is what happens next if Canelo Alvarez beats Jaime Munguia?
The knockout point, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but there was a point in Manny Pacquiao's career, and I've referenced this on the show before, where like he just stopped knocking dudes out, and that was kind of it. Like he was just winning by decision over and over and over again. And it was probably to the point where, he came up in the very, very lighter weight classes, moved up all the way to welterweight, super welterweight at one point, but welterweight toward the end of his career is predominantly where he was. And he wasn't knocking guys out. I don't know if that was a weight class thing, an age thing, or just at some point, they say your power is the last thing to go, but finishing ability wasn't quite there. And we're talking about decisions against guys like, no disrespect, Chris Algieri, Jesse Vargas, guys you would have projected to finish. Like if you look at probably the odds for what they were back then, maybe you would have thought he could have finished those dudes. Adrian Broner is another one. I remember people thinking that he would knock out Adrian Broner. Lucas Matisse was Manny Pacquiao's only knockout after 2009, and he boxed all the way to 2021. So is Canelo Alvarez at that stage in his career? I believe his last knockout was Caleb Plant, which is in late 2021.
Yeah, it doesn't seem too far ago, but it definitely was. Like it was a little while ago. I believe that was his last stoppage. Yes.
But I don't think you're going to find another stretch in his career where you're talking about 5 fights he has no knockouts in a row, right? Like so it's like if you look at it, and by the way, this is going to be the 65th fight of his career. So like this is not a young fighter either. Who turned pro in 2005. He's approaching 20 years in the game as a professional. Caleb Plant was the last knockout in November of 2020. 21. And since then, Bivol, Golovkin, Ryder, Charlo, this will be the 5th fight. And we'll see what happens. So ultimately, I think what's next is just, again, this is Canelo. So whatever he wants, assuming he wins this fight and assuming there's no controversy, he does it either in a landslide or by knockout. I don't know what whatever he wants is, though. I would like it to be David Benavidez, but it doesn't appear that that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I don't think the David Benavidez fight is going to happen. If he gets past Jaime Munguia, which I do believe is a pretty tough test for Canelo, and we will be breaking that all down, I think he might fight Edgar Berlanga. I don't know if Edgar's ready for a Canelo Alvarez, but I think that might be a fight that Canelo might want to take. Canelo's at the stage in his career, well, he's been for a while, that he can do whatever he likes. I think the most important thing for him is to have a really good finish. A lot of people talk about that John Ryder fight. Canelo was coming off of a wrist surgery. Like his hand wasn't the same, right? So I don't believe he was 100%. And the craziest part is, did we even know that Canelo's hand was bothering him before that fight? Because he stops Caleb Plant. He loses to Dimitri Bivol. After the Dimitri Bivol loss, a lot of people were counting Canelo out. Let's remember that that's not his natural weight class. Like, we thought that he was going to be, this 4-division champ, run through different divisions. At one point, we were talking about him, going up against Artur Beterbiev, right? We kept on putting Canelo in different weight classes and thinking he was going to run through them because that's what he was doing. And I think for him, he wants to have a good performance for himself, but I think he's confident and everything, just because I don't know if Canelo's been 100% this whole entire time. Like, having a wrist surgery, a lot of it's mental, right? Because you don't know how strong your hand is. Canelo says his hand is fine. But I don't think that we saw the Canelo Alvarez that we're used to seeing in that John Ryder fight. I thought he was going to stop John Ryder. John Ryder's face was crazy in that fight.
Yep.
Tough ass dude. But
Small
styles
too.
make fight. Yeah, styles make fights though. And that's the most important thing for this. I think Canelo can do whatever he wants. But listen, if he knocks out Jaime Munguia, why not see him fight Edgar Berlanga after? And everyone loves the Mexico-Puerto Rico rivalry, right? Is Edgar Berlanga ready? I mean, I don't think he is. However, that's going to bring in a lot of dollars because, hate it or love it, if you like Edgar or not, he's one of the few people in boxing that have already been seen as a superstar, essentially, right? He went on that knockout run. You got rappers and stuff coming to his fights and supporting him. He has a lot of the New York crowd supporting him as well. So I think that's what Canelo would look to do next. And that's what's been rumored, right? At one point, it was like, is he going to fight Jaime or is he going to fight Edgar Berlanga? So I think he's going to just line him up and just go that way. So that's what I think. Do you have any final thoughts before I move over to the Jaime Munguia piece?
Edgar Berlanga is supposed to be the mandatory challenger for Canelo Alvarez after this. Remember that was reported out there, like he might become the mandatory. And it's funny because we were saying that the last fights between Patrick McCrory and Edgar Berlanga and also Jaime Munguia versus John Ryder, the two winners should face each other for the right to face Canelo Alvarez. Well, it looks like Canelo Alvarez is probably going to fight both anyway. Yes. And it would make a lot of sense. Like, if you're not going to fight David Benavidez, like if he fights Edgar Berlanga in September, I think all of us will kind of be like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. He'll probably win that fight, but business-wise, it makes sense. Edgar Berlanga does have power that should concern Canelo Alvarez, but could he land on him effectively? It's kind of similar to the Jaime Munguia fight that we're talking about, where stylistically you break it down, like some of the same issues that Edgar Berlanga has, Jaime Munguia has, which is why I thought they should have fought each other. Maybe they could if they both lose to Canelo Alvarez anyway.
I do want to say though, and this is not me being biased because everyone knows if you watch the show, I love Mexican fighters. I do think Jaime Munguia is a lot more polished than Edgar Berlanga. He's got more fights on his belt, and I think he's more polished.
I think he's more polished, but I do want to see if Edgar Berlanga's last performance was that just like his best performance and it just being a one-off, or is that like what he's going to do now? And some people don't even think that was a great performance, but I think, like, listen, I thought it was great. That's real progress from where he was. Like, that's real progress from what he was doing since the knockout streak ended. As it pertains to that beating Canelo Alvarez, I don't know. The only guy who I really feel confident in beating Canelo Alvarez right now, other than Dimitri Bivol, who already did it, is David Benavidez. is the only other one where I'm and that's not even like like a layup. Like Canelo, if he beats Benavidez in a future fight, I don't think people will be that shocked. I combined both words two different ways there, professional broadcaster. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
I do want to say before we move on, if he gets past Jaime Munguia and then if he gets past Edgar Berlanga, if that fight happens, Bryan mentioned he's a mandatory. Does he finally fight Maul? Does that fight finally happen? Does he just avoid Benavidez altogether? Because Benavidez moved up, right? He already knows this fight's not going to happen. And if we're talking about Canelo's legacy, he's only got 2 losses on there, Dimitri Bivol and Mayweather. Those are not too bad losses to have. And I don't want
Arguably
to see the
more.
Bivol rematch. Yeah, I mean, listen, I listen.
Arguably one or
I
two
think
more.
that first Triple G fight. I thought Triple G won that fight. I thought the second one was a draw, and
The
then he
Arasani
destroyed Triple
Lara
G.
one. The Arasani Lara one's also a hotly debated one. But he has 2 losses on record. Um, Look, let's go to a couple comments here before we get to the potential upset portion of this, because I think that's worth talking about, because we didn't do it that much for the Ryan Garcia fight because we
We
all
should have.
expected Devin Haney would win that fight, and he should have, and he still almost did, except he didn't because Ryan Garcia kind of whooped his ass and I think broke his jaw. Ryan Garcia's been wilding before and is wilding ever since, but that's another story for another day. I am PK. I think this fight goes to distance.
We're
We'll
gonna
get to
get
that
into
in a little
that.
bit. Yeah. Jesus. We already know Berlanga was strategically moved for Canelo.
I
Well,
agree.
look,
I mean, when it happened,
when he signed
when
with Matchroom,
Berlanga, we already knew that was the vision, right? So yeah, for sure. And listen, Jesus and IMPK13, both friends of the show. Keep the comments coming, guys. We are going to be getting to all of your comments, but we got to get to the upset portion of this because this is more of the interesting topic. This is more of, is it the passing of the torch? You talk and you hear Oscar De La Hoya talking about Jaime Munguia is going to get it done. A lot of people also believe it's kind of like essentially when, Mayweather gave Canelo a shot. That was something that happened. It could be the passing of the torch. Jaime Munguia, a young fighter, I believe 27 years old. He's going to have the height and reach advantage in this one. He has the power, and it's going to be an exciting fight. So I think the biggest question, other than Canelo winning, is what happens if Jaime Munguia gets it done, shocks the world, and beats Canelo Alvarez?
it would kind of be a full circle moment because, like, I don't think people realize how long Jaime Munguia has been around as potentially one of the next big Mexican superstars. I remember being I was covering the Edgar Berlanga fight last year, in June. And obviously Eddie Hearn was there, and this is when they were talking about, oh, Edgar Berlanga versus Jaime Munguia, maybe that could happen. Boxing being boxing, it didn't. And Eddie Hearn basically was like, he was shit talking Oscar, was like, bro, Jaime Munguia has like the worst resume out of like, all these undefeated fighters or whatever. I think what he said was actually worse, but it's basically what he was getting at. I'm paraphrasing, but he just said Jaime Munguia basically has no resume and is not at all what he's been promoted to be. It is interesting because if you do look at his resume, people probably forget, like, yeah, Jaime Munguia was somebody who I learned about him in the HBO days, and he had been fighting for super welterweight championships. He beat the shit out of Saddam Ali after Saddam Ali narrowly beat Miguel Cotto, another debatable decision. And, the Liam Smith fight, he had that. There were people that thought Dennis Hogan should have gotten the win over him when they fought in 2019, that being a big thing. And this is when Jaime Munguia, you said he's 27. He was 22 when this fight happened. Like he's been young and in this sort of stretch for a while, but his resume is not super impressive. But there's a world where, like, now at 27, going on 28 in October, does he put it all together to actually beat Canelo Alvarez? Because he does have some physical advantages here that are probably worth mentioning, like height and reach, maybe size. I would say naturally, like he's always been bigger. He was big for, middleweight and super welterweight before. I think he's going to be a light heavyweight someday. I think we all believe that. Like, I don't think it's going to happen, but Man, he the way he's priced at plus 380, which we'll talk about, like it makes you think about it. But I will say this, you kind of have to bet it by knockout. It would kind of have to be like a shocking knockout because I don't think he's gonna get rounds off Canelo unless he just breaks him down in a way that I just don't see. But Jaime Munguia, if he puts it all together, like Canelo Alvarez is again year 19, and this is going to be his 65th fight. He's 33. He's going to be 34 in July. Like one of these times, other than Dimitri Bivol, one of these times someone could break him down if he hangs around long enough. Maybe this week this is it.
And at some point when you're getting older as a boxer, at some point you're going to lose it. At some point, it's going to happen. Is it going to happen this weekend against Jaime Munguia? If Jaime Munguia wins this fight, he automatically propels in conversation for the pound for pound. You have Canelo Alvarez. You're one of the L's on his resume. That will do wonders for him. But, I kind of mentioned this earlier, and the talk is really when, Money Mayweather gave Canelo a shot. Also the passing of the torch when Canelo beat Miguel Cotto, right? Because Miguel Cotto was that dude and he was getting older. Canelo comes in and gets the dub against him. Kind of something similar that could possibly happen. But if Jaime Munguia beats Canelo, he can do whatever he wants. And I still think a money fight with him and Edgar Berlanga would make sense. That would still make sense to me.
Yes. It would
Unless
be a big
Canelo,
Oscar de la Hoya too.
yeah, and same thing,
Ryan
Mexico
Garcia and Jaime.
Yeah, Mexico versus Puerto Rico again, right? That's one of the biggest rivalries and one of the best rivalries in boxing. So I feel like he could still take on Edgar Berlanga after. I feel like Jaime Munguia could do whatever he wants if he beats Canelo Alvarez. And right away, I think he becomes an instant superstar, right? Because if you mention to casual boxing fans about Jaime Munguia, they might not really know too much about him. Right? You might hear that name and be like, what? Jaime Munguia, I actually think should be a bigger name in boxing than what he is right now. Because if you think about all the hype when he first came into the game, right? He's 27 years old, so he's not a young kid anymore. He's getting a little bit older, but this is a great shot for him. And I think right now, after what we saw in his last fight against John Ryder, perfect timing for a guy like Jaime Munguia. He's got a lot of support. Can he get it done? He does have physical attributes against Canelo Alvarez. He's the younger fighter. He's exciting. He's got the power. So honestly, Jaime Munguia, if he can get this done against Canelo Alvarez, he'll get into the pound for pound list top 10, because if Ryan Garcia is number 10 and Jaime Munguia beats Canelo Alvarez, listen, you're going to be on the pound for pound list. You're going to fight whoever you want to fight. I still think you make the fight with Edgar Berlanga because that's a moneymaker business wise. And, let's get to this comment. Friend of the show, Big Surge. This is interesting. I'm going for the upset. Munguia will provoke Canelo to fight hard the first half of the fight and then take over the second half. He will have to survive first, but he will get it done. Munguia decision. Wow. You know what? I hate going against Canelo in Vegas for a decision.
Yeah,
we're gonna get into that, right? Because even if I think Munguia is gonna get some rounds. He's gonna have some moments in this fight. But to get a decision against Canelo Alvarez in Vegas is tough. You know what I mean? It's extremely tough. So listen, I'm not going to be surprised if there was an upset, because we just saw Ryan Garcia defeat Devin Haney. Anything is possible. Okay. But styles make fights, and we're gonna get into that whole entire breakdown. Bryan, before we get into Money Be Green, is there any final thoughts on Munguia possibly beating Canelo Alvarez?
Would this be a bigger upset than Devin Haney losing rather to Ryan Garcia?
No.
The odds don't think so either.
You know why? Because Canelo's, a lot of people are saying Canelo's at the tail end of his career, and he didn't have like that crazy stoppage against John Ryder, which he should have. And because of that, everyone hyped up John Ryder, and the fact that Jaime Munguia knocked him out, they're like, oh my God, I think John Ryder was a Euro level fighter this whole entire time. I think Canelo came back from wrist surgery, wasn't 100%, and he got the decision. He still beat the crap out of him. Did you see John Ryder's face? Canelo still beat the crap out of him. Like, what, you know what I mean? He doesn't have to knock him out. Like, I don't believe that you have to have the knockout to have this crazy performance. You could just break someone down for 12 rounds, and I'm good with that. So I think Devin Haney losing that no one thought Ryan Garcia was gonna win. If you did, please show me your betting slip.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't. Just like the diehard Ryan Garcia fan. It's kind of like right now where like Kendrick drops this diss and you have Drake fans saying calling it whack on social media and saying that he took too long to respond when Drake also has done that. We're gonna get off that. So yeah, look, I think it wouldn't be as big of an upset maybe as Ryan Garcia, but like it would be very shocking. It'd be one of the upsets of the year. It's not priced that way, which we should get into now, but it would shock the hell out of me because Canelo Alvarez again, like he's only lost a couple of different times, and some people would say 3 or 4, maybe even 5 more times. But regardless, Jaime Munguia is not on the level of dudes that typically beat Canelo Alvarez, of which there are only a couple.
Yeah, but you know what? Let's get into Money Be Green. We're gonna be letting you know our favorite bets for Canelo Alvarez and Jaime Munguia.
Motherfucker, money be green. Money feel like money. That shit look green to you?
All right, straight up on the money line, Canelo Alvarez is a minus 525, Jaime Munguia a plus 380. Brian, tell me what you think about the line and then tell me how you're going to be betting this one.
The over under for what it's worth is 10.5 minus 250. I think out on the market I saw minus 225 for that on the over. The under here, at least, in the sports book I'm looking at of record, none of them sponsor us, so I don't mention them. Plus 175 under 10.5. So if you think there's going to be a knockout, that's actually a pretty juicy price. This is interesting. So Canelo Alvarez by decision was minus 125 earlier, now minus 115 at one prominent book out there on the market. By knockout, plus 180, which is around where it was before. Jaime Munguia has come down a little bit. So last night when I looked, Jaime Munguia by decision was at plus 800 and by stoppage was plus 1,000. Now the stoppage is plus 950 and the decision went from 800 to 700. So some money has come in on Jaime Munguia to pull off this upset. I don't know if it's some of y'all watching this, but I do find that very interesting. That being said, Canelo Alvarez by decision is where I'm going, minus 115. It's the safest bet. It's Vegas. I don't think Canelo Alvarez is knocking out dudes with the same ferocity. And Jaime Munguia has never been stopped. He definitely got rocked against Sergey Derevyanchenko over and over and over and needed a knockdown in the 12th round to avoid a draw, which that's a very good fighter, but that would have put a little bit of a blemish on his record in terms of the viability of him becoming a superstar and all these different things. Like if that draw happens, we might not get here today with Jaime Munguia. So I just think Canelo Alvarez is better, and I'm gonna bank on it. Like at some point, Canelo Alvarez is gonna lose another fight, but to me, it's kind of David Benavidez or Dimitri Bivol or bust right now for that. I don't think I would take Jaime Munguia. There's just too many flaws that I feel like Canelo Alvarez could expose, and I trust his defense when Jaime Munguia is going to try to push the pace. Like Canelo Alvarez is smart enough, calculated enough, and I still think for now quick enough to avoid that, and is an expert counterpuncher as we know. So
I don't like betting against Canelo in Vegas.
yeah,
This happened with me with the first Triple G fight, and Jaime Munguia, despite the fact of him getting the chance, we talked about it. He's been rocked before. Derevyanchenko, Gary O'Sullivan. I also believe Tyrion Johnson kind of had him a little bit shook.
Tyrion Johnson, that's right.
This has happened before, right? And it's like I'm a little bit sus on Jaime Munguia, and this is also why I believe that Jaime Munguia isn't as big as a name as he should be. He should be a way bigger name. Canelo Alvarez. I take a look at this fight. Styles make fights. Canelo Alvarez is one of the best counterpunchers in boxing. Still, he's better defensively. He's a great body puncher, one of the elite body punchers in boxing. That has not changed. Jaime Munguia has the work rate and he has the power. And he's going to have the height and reach advantage in this one. But I think Canelo Alvarez is going to be able to land on the body, use his footwork, and counterpunch the hell out of him. And when it comes to the cards, and I think Jaime Munguia is going to have some moments. I think he's going to have some moments in this fight, but I don't think he's going to be able to do enough to beat Canelo on the cards. And I think the only way Jaime Munguia wins is if he knocks out Canelo Alvarez. Now, if you take a look at the odds, and Jaime Munguia has a chance. If Ryan Garcia can get it done against Devin Haney, anything is possible. I just want to say that, okay? Anything is possible if that can get done. I wouldn't mind if you are thinking about the upset, just to bet on Jaime Munguia on one prominent sports book. It's still a plus 1,000 to bet on Jaime Munguia by knockout. That's the only way he's going to beat Canelo Alvarez. It's not going to happen on the cards in Vegas. Canelo is too skilled, and listen, they love him in Vegas, right? All I know is this is going to be a ridiculous fight. I am going to keep it safe. I think Canelo Alvarez wins by decision. I know that's not the sexy bet, but that's the bet I'm going with. I also think there is a chance because Jaime Munguia gets sloppy. I talked about the guys that he's been shook by. I also think there is a possibility that Canelo continues to break him down round by round because he's defensively irresponsible. And if you do that against a guy like Canelo Alvarez, it could be an issue for you. So I also like if you like Canelo and you're rocking with Canelo, you don't think the torch is going to get passed. I also think that there is value in taking the fact that Canelo Alvarez to win in rounds 7 through 12 plus 330. I think there's some value there. Because listen, Canelo could get it done. And Jaime Munguia is young. And regardless if he wins this fight, he's going to have a name after this, right? It is the passing of the torch. So I'm going to go with Canelo decision. That's a safe bet. I don't see Jaime Munguia knocking him out. I also don't see Jaime Munguia beating him on the cards in Vegas. So that's the bet I'm going with. But I do think Jaime Munguia is going to have some moments in this fight. I just think Canelo is way too skilled, and he's going to counterpunch the hell out of Jaime Munguia.
Last question, then we'll get to comments. Will you put something small on Jaime Munguia to win by knockout?
Yeah, I will, because I think Jaime Munguia has. You have to. You have
just
to,
in case. It's like if you're giving me plus 1,000, right? If my bet that I think is actually going to happen, Canelo Alvarez by decision, is minus 115. We're talking about almost even money, just about even money. If you're giving me Munguia, like on the off chance, like, all right, if Munguia is going to win, it's likely going to be by knockout, not on the cards. And Canelo Alvarez, like, look, this happens to dudes. Like, sometimes you just get starched, right? Like, at some point this is his 65th fight. At some point, he may get starched, right? Jaime Munguia has the power to do it. I wouldn't bet that. I wouldn't bet a whole lot on it. But, man, if you're giving me plus 1,000, I might take a little shot at that. Kind of like what we did with Joe Joyce and Zhilei Zhang, where we were like, I don't know. Like, Joe Joyce is a favorite, but Zhilei Zhang by knockouts plus 1,000, and, you know, he knocked him the hell out. Like,
yeah, I think there's definitely value in sprinkling something on Jaime Munguia. Here's the thing. Can he get it done against Canelo? That's the biggest question. Is he ready for Canelo Alvarez? And at some point, Canelo is going to go off into the sunset. We don't know when. We don't know who his last opponent's going to be, but it's going to happen. I think it's nearing pretty soon. But Jaime Munguia has a chance in this fight. He has the power. Now, what I do want to ask you, Bryan, other than Jaime Munguia that Canelo's facing right now, because, they said Mel does have power. Okay, he came up 2 weight classes. He didn't show any power in his fight against Canelo, but he does have power, right? John Ryder, you're a level fighter. I'm just going to say that. All right, Caleb Platt's got power. But is this the biggest power punch? Because Munguia's got power, like raw power. Is this the strongest power puncher that Canelo has faced in a while?
Sergey Kovalev 2019 is probably the other one I could think of.
And Kovalev wasn't Kovalev by that time either, right? Like, he still had the power.
That point is why I skipped over Gennady Golovkin in 2022, because we know Triple G, like, he basically retired since. You know what I mean? Like,
it was sad that was the trilogy fight was tough to watch as a Triple G fan, for sure.
Also, didn't like how Canelo ended that fight, which is another thing to perhaps watch for. He didn't end strong against John Ryder either. Is that something that Jaime Munguia, who got a 12th round knockdown against Sergey Derevinchenko, like, is that something that he could sort of do like late in rounds? Because Canelo Alvarez, like he doesn't always finish his strongest. He did against Caleb Plant, but that was a while ago. But yeah, Sergey Kovalev, Canelo fought Danny Jacobs that same year in May 2019. Like this is probably the territory that Jaime Munguia is in terms of power. If you want to say Munguia is definitely a harder puncher than that version of Kovalev and that version of Danny Jacobs, like I'll listen.
Yes, I think so. I
don't think that's outrageous. So at the very minimum, we would go back to Gennady Golovkin and end it there, 2018, 2017, when it was still peak Triple G. Like that Triple G was different than the Triple G we saw in 2022. So yeah, this is one of the hardest punches Canelo's seen over the last 5, you could even say 10 years, because before that, it's Amir Khan, it's Miguel Cotto, it's James Kirkland.
And once again, Miguel Cotto, about that time, Miguel Cotto was like at the tail end of his career too.
He's fighting at middleweight.
What I mean? So yeah, so it's not the same. So here's another thing too that I want to say before we get into the comments. If Canelo Alvarez, because we know Canelo can take a punch as well. If Canelo Alvarez gets it done against Jaime Munguia, and Jaime Munguia has a really, really good performance, has some good rounds, lands some big shots on Canelo, we have to stop disrespecting Canelo. And I never do it, but the disrespect has to stop, because he is taking a chance fighting a young Jaime Munguia. It won't, but it has to.
I think people are going to say, yeah, I think people are just going to be like, he beat Jaime Munguia. Who did Jaime Munguia ever beat? Da, 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 da. Like, I think
stop it. He's dangerous. He's a dangerous fighter, man.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna diss Canelo because like all the shit he's done or whatever. Like, has he had some favorable decisions? Sure. Was he like 30 pounds?
Who doesn't though?
Was he like 30 pounds more like than Miguel Cotto when they fought each other on fight night? Sure, whatever. Like whatever the gap was, it was
not his fault. He knows how to rehydrate. Apparently, Ryan Garcia was 180 pounds in that fight with Devin Haney.
I don't think Miguel Cotto should have fought at middleweight, but I understood why he did it. Look, Miguel Cotto is my all-time second or third favorite boxer ever. So
might as well. Top 5.
All right, let's do comments. Nerd. And please feel free, add some comments. We'll take some for a couple minutes before we get out of here. Triple G was coming off a knockout of the Japanese cat. The Japanese cat is funny. I know who you're talking about. This isn't 20.
Right?
Remember he fought in did he actually fight on New Year's Day? No, it was supposed to be New Year's Day, and then it got pushed back to like April.
Don't diss Ryota Murata, because listen, this guy is like Olympian, and people love him in Japan. That was a tough fight, and Triple G went to Japan to have that fight. I remember it was hella early.
Murata also retired shortly thereafter, so salute on a professional career that was memorable. Especially in Japan. All right, nerd again. Goro will give it a go, but Cinnabon will be too much for the young man.
Yes, he will.
The nicknames that boxing fans have for some of these. I know it Canelo Cinnamon, but Cinnabon is not one I've heard. That is funny.
I've heard Cinnabon before, and I was like, who is that? And it was on one of our lives actually, and someone's like Canelo, so.
Big Surge had this comment I wanted to get to. It's Oscar versus Canelo in Vegas. So hopefully Oscar can use his influence to keep it even.
And that's a rumor that usually goes on for Golden Boy Promotions when they put on fights. But listen,
Oscar's got the B-side though. Oscar's got the B-side. That's the problem.
Yeah, and Canelo's always going to be the A-side in Vegas. I do want to get back to Big Surge, because we is it Surge? My bad if I'm saying it wrong. I'm no Ryan fan, but I did Ryan winning by decision. I just couldn't bet because obviously in Cali, betting's not legal there. I do want to say, okay, that I don't know who took Ryan, so I'm going to believe you, but I'm guessing you're also listening to Blessed and Highly Favored. I'm just joking. Because now Ryan's a rapper. But no, I mean, if you actually took that bet and bet on that upset, good on you. Obviously you can like bet, because you lived in Cali. But if you made side bets, we won't put you on blast there though. But listen, it could be an upset, and if it is, well, you'll be able to listen to us talk about it, because we are going to be doing a post-fight show after Canelo Alvarez and Jaime Munguia. You can catch us here, live show. Make sure to hop on with us. We'll be rocking with you. Also, tomorrow, we got another surprise for you. We are going to be breaking down Inoue and Luis Nery. We're going to give you the full fight preview. It's going to be 7 a.m. here on the West Coast, 10 a.m. where Bryan is in New York. So make sure to come and rock with us tomorrow as we break that all down for you, because it's a crazy fight week. Bryan, before we get out of here, any final thoughts?
Ryan Hong says Canelo's going to make Munguia his second wife. This is going to get ugly. I think we can end it on that note. See y'all tomorrow.